Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here, aka the Blue Blur, aka Blue Justice, and I am from the likes of the Mexi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Sonic Origins for the likes of the forms of the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, PC, Steam, and finally the Nintendo Switch. So last time we have basically completed everything in terms of the mission mode, and my god, that was actually quite the marathon for the sake of the forms we're trying to able to go for this entire, you know what I mean, mission mode. So either way, because relatively speaking with all that ridiculous S-rank requirements and all that stuff though, so today, this video is about the fact that we're about to take on the next mode, which appears to be by the forms of a boss rush. So obviously you've already seen those bosses already, except the fact that the biggest difference is now that I'm actually going to be taking control of different playable characters, as you can probably see on screen. Mind you, about the fact the matter is though, about the fact that we're about to be able to go through all of those bosses again, except the fact that we need to play as, well, I can assure you, I was expected to able to go through Knuckles on Sonic 1, but not so much in Sonic CD because he was not playable. And on top of that, hopefully by that time we were able to actually just to show off Knuckles' run during the course of any Sonic 3 and Knuckles boss rush, because, well, obviously that his boss fight is a little bit more differently than the forms of how it does it in both Sonic and Tails' playthrough of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, as far as I'm aware. So either way though, that might be saying something. So yeah, a few things we want to explain while this is happening is that, well, today's day is of course the 19th of March today, in this case in 2023 today. Now, as I mentioned this before, that I don't think we can probably upload any Sonic Origins for the time being after this, just because we feel like we can able to actually let, well, presumably we'll let Mighty and Ray will able to both mention more about it until whenever they go on to the 4th and final game on Super Mario All-Stars. So either way, thankfully though, as you can tell, that relatively speaking, once we get to the 4th boss in Sonic 1, not only does it give us 3 rings, but also we can able to actually skip the entire portion of the boss fight while trying to avoid the actual water, because obviously with his ability to fly, so this means about the fact that obviously Tails is pretty much the easy mode of the game. So either way, I do appreciate about that. So either way, so yeah, and this is also another way you can able to actually grind some more coins if you manage to able to actually complete the actual boss rush itself, because obviously if you're expecting that you've almost running out of some of those coins you're going to be collecting to able to spend on the museum, quite frankly though, it's actually pretty easy to able to farm some more, you know, bonus coins as far as I'm aware, due to the forms of the mission mode, but also so it applies with boss rush as well. So even then though, but this time they do actually have some actual names for certain bosses, like for instance we've already taken down Egg Spiker, and now we're going to be taking on the final boss in Sonic 1, which appears to be known as Egg Crusher. So our first fall is going to be Egg Pistons, because I keep thinking about the forms of Sonic Mania for some reason, but either way though, that might be saying something. So now in terms of the forms of everything else I can probably discuss at this point, I was originally going to be able to try and mention more details about the forms of news regardless of the forms of Mario Kart Tour, but then again though, I'll let both Mighty and Ray will both mention more about it until whenever they go back onto Super Mario All-Stars, because quite frankly though, about the fact the matter is though, we're actually getting very close towards the end of March before we move on to April. So relatively speaking though, that's as far as I can usually try to able to muster when it comes to likely for, you know what I mean. So either way though, let's discuss upon new forms of the news discussions we can probably discuss upon while this is happening. First of all, someone said in the comments or the actual poll voting called MD Game Station that he did question us, what is your favorite 2D Sonic series? And the majority of the people did say, for about 42%, they honestly do enjoy the classic series, which I honestly agree to that. Especially concerning about the fact that, you know, with Sonic 3 and Knuckles, it's always have to be one of my favorite games of all time because of the introduction of these elemental shields and all that stuff. And on top of that, when it comes to the forms of the Rush series, The Rush series is actually received for about 33%, which is actually a good thing, despite the fact that it does have some very questionable level design, such as for instance too many emphasis on bottomless pits and stuff like that. And on top of all that stuff though, when it comes to Advanced series, as far as I'm aware, they did somehow manage to vote that for about 21%, so not bad for its actual percentage mark. However though, for Sonic 4 series though, it only receives just 4%. Get it? Because of Sonic the Hedgehog 4, which, honestly, because of how the fact that a lot of people seem to don't care about Sonic the Hedgehog 4 anymore, just because of the cancellation of the third episode. So either way though, yeah, I can totally see why that Sonic 4 gets a lot more unpopular now, especially concerning with the physics gone horribly wrong, and you probably named the idea about that, so especially it's more likely a similar thing as the new forms of the duology Mario Party games that utilizes the card mechanic as the actual main gameplay of Mario Party 9 and 10. That basically though, thankfully that the actual card mechanic has been gone completely after like, you know, 8 years or so. So either way, yeah, something's worth noting for if you couldn't tell already, that I did somehow manage to did this off screen, as you probably can tell, for the sake of the forms of changing the actual soundtrack. When it comes to the forms of I somehow managed able to replace the music to the US version to the Japanese version, just in case of some Sonic fans might able to actually recognize certain music from the likes of the Japanese version and stuff like that, slash the European version as far as I'm aware. So yeah, everything else will be pretty much all settled by then. So either way, and on top of all that stuff though, speaking of Mario Kart Tour though, that I finally managed able to receive something out of it when it comes to the phone's the stupid tier system, which you probably already know what I mean, that I've managed able to go myself not only the Pipe Buggy, the rainbow variation of that particular kart, but I finally managed able to go myself the final color scheme, I'm presuming so anyway, based off from Koopa Free Runner. So as a result, I've now finally got myself the green variation of Koopa Free Running. So as a result, I'm basically all settled by then, especially now I've actually got, you know, the red, blue, and purple, and green, and also golden as well, I think? Well, I'm not exactly sure if I miscalculated or how much Koopa Free Running colors are, because it has been a very, very, very long time actually since I actually last played Super Mario Odyssey, because I'm now usually strictly trying to able to actually go ahead and play, you know, Breath of the Wild before Tears of the Kingdom comes out, and relatively speaking though, everything else will be pretty much expected at one point. So, anyways though, and obviously, if you couldn't tell already, much like the forms of in the 2011 remastered version of Sonic CD, that obviously Tails can be usually become playable, and much like in that particular version of the game, that basically Tails can once again fly. So either way though, chances are though, yeah, you probably get the idea about that. So, in regards of anything else, I could possibly explain anything else as well. That, speaking of something related to Mario though, well, suffice to say, they have managed able to get ourselves a BBFC, British Film of Classification has been confirmed recently. And from what I found out, much like the forms of how it does it in both Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movies, in addition to the forms of DreamWorks and especially notable with Detective Pikachu as well, the Super Mario Bros. Movie is also getting its PG-rated film, and especially concerning about the fact that the actual contents they contained, which are mild violence and threats. So either way though, that might be sounds kind of similar rating system board as the new forms of My Little Pony the Movie 2017 version. Well, I haven't exactly thought about it, because I know for a fact it has been a very long while since I actually last seen the film, ever since whenever I watched it on Blu-ray, I believe, to able to experience the good old movie of mine in 1080p. So either way though, that might be saying something, even though it's a bit of a shame that film doesn't seem to able to receive the 4K resolution. So, oh well, no big deal though, but hey, at least that's something I suppose. So obviously we've now got ourselves the proper energetic music in the background, because again I've managed able to switch over to the Japanese soundtrack on off screen. So, oh wait a minute, something tells me Metal Sonic is gonna beat me. Oh no! I was so close! And obviously every time whenever you do manage to able to begin a boss rush, you do have 3 lives. So, but there was actually that particular trick I would like to able to point things out, is that if you ever run out of lives, don't choose retry, because instead, I highly suggest you go back to the main menu, because otherwise you will able to continue your save, your progressioning, which, yeah, that could be rather amusing, especially concerning if you accidentally manage to choose retry instead of the forms of trying to hit back to the main menu, then basically that is about the fact that you will have to start all over again without even realizing that. Well, it's kind of hard to say, because I know for a fact there's been quite a few days since I actually noticed something like this, so. Oh, and talking of which, when it comes to film related and stuff like that, there was actually a Blue Sky Studios movie called Horton Hears a Who, based off on the forms of the book from the likes of Dr. Seuss and stuff like that. Well, relatively speaking, that particular film has been out for 15 years now, since 2008. Despite the fact that I've never actually seen the movie by myself, because, well, I'm really not a big fan of the forms of films related to Dr. Seuss books, because, well, some of them are alright, but most of the time I'm not in the mood for it, especially concerning about the fact that after seeing that very horrendous Cat in the Hat movie, which, by the way, that film were expected to become 20 years old this year, which, ironically enough, that might be seems true, all things considered, despite the fact that it's been, you know, critically hated for the sake of the films of that particular movie, despite the fact that not only it's been made by the films of Universal Pictures, but also same applies with the films of, I would classify for saying DreamWorks as well, which, gee, no wonder why that, I just have no words to think about it. So either way, so yeah, let's just go ahead and take care of the forms of the final boss in Sonic CD, but this time with Tails. So relatively speaking though, that what I found was a little bit interesting is that obviously ever since in a Sonic's playthrough, in the story mode most likely, that we did somehow manage to experience the game within the North American soundtrack, then now we're able to experience the Japanese and European soundtrack as Tails, so it's basically like a switcheroo compared to the forms of how it does it in the 2017 playthrough of the game. So, yeah, you probably expect it at that point. So, the fact that this particular boss rush doesn't take that very long as well. So, I think between both Sonic 1 and Sonic CD boss rush modes, they obviously don't take nearly as long as I don't think. So either way, now let's go ahead and move on to Sonic the Hedgehog 2 when it comes to boss fights department. And what makes this a bit interesting is that every time whenever you start the boss rush itself, basically we can able to actually hear the Death Egg Zone music. So either way though, just to prepare for ourselves, you know, the ultimate challenge up ahead, so. But then again though, I was expecting if I was trying to able to go through Knuckles' playthrough as well. But the thing is though, you play through exactly the same levels as to be expected. So either way, wow, there's no Walter in here. So I guess we should probably just go ahead and just bash him for about 8 times. Egg Potion, or Egg Poison. Oh, that's what it's called anyway, so. Yeah, I do apologize if my commentary is a little bit slightly iffy at this point today. But regardless of such though, that there are other things I would like to possibly try to mention about something related to the forms of other stuff worth noting for, is that regardless of the forms of everything else for that besides, I'm talking of which when it comes to Mario related things as well, that ever since during the forms within the you know, the Mario 10 Day, ever since during the forms within 9 days ago. Apparently though, they actually received some more LEGO sets for the sake of the forms of the LEGO Super Mario lineup. And this time around though, I don't think in this year though, we won't be able to actually get ourselves the actual unique technology kind of character or anything else like that. So instead, you're able to actually get yourselves a new set, which appears to be by the forms of Dry Bowser Castle Battle. Okay, that sounds a little bit interesting, all things considered. So, naturally speaking, not only do we get, you know, Bowser, since during the forms have been the past few years ago, but also with the forms of Bowser Jr., and now we're going to be getting the Dry Bowser Lego at some point, much like the forms of how it does it on the past 3 years, between 2020, 2021, and 2022, it's going to be once again going to be able to be released until the beginning of August. Like, seriously, why is it always the 1st of August for some odd reason? But either way, though, I get ahead of myself at this point. So, But in addition to the forms of the Dry Bowser Castle set, there's also going to be a brand new character that's going to be introduced on the actual LEGO Mario Super set. And this time around though, it appears to be LEGO Donkey Kong. So yeah, pretty cool, all things considered. Even though, despite the fact that, unlike any forms of how it does it in Mario, Luigi, and especially Peach, I'm afraid Donkey Kong does not have a special Bluetooth function. So because of that though, he's more likely act out like a piggyback ride. For the sake of the forms, you know, one of those enemies you do encounter from the likes of in Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2. That basically though, it's kind of like that, except the fact that, well, relatively speaking, it's actually modeled like an actual Donkey Kong model for the sake of the Lego bricks and stuff. So either way. And I suppose I should probably also mention about this as well, in regards to the forms of also something related to Mario related as well, that apparently though, out of nowhere, that the Super Mario Run did somehow receive the actual update, which, fundamentally speaking though, it did somehow manage to allow us to like, unlock the level each day by linking a Nintendo account. So I'm guessing it's kind of like, I don't know what you would call it, because it's been a very long time since I actually last played Super Mario Run, just because, you know, still into the forms of Mario Kart Tour, despite the fact that I've almost gonna get myself ticked off by that game, still, especially concerning about the fact that I always gonna get butt kicked every single time with its bad controls, bad item system, and it's just, well, I just don't know if the actual, the servers for Mario Kart Tour were about to be ending until, but I think my guess is it'll probably be next year, if possible, in 2024, or perhaps even maybe 2025, depending on certain stimulations. So, the one thing I should not even realize is that apparently though, speaking of the Mario 10 Day, that out of nowhere, we did somehow manage to come across into kind of like a similar thing as the forms of how it does on the 35th anniversary of something related to Mario back in 2020. That apparently though, that the Nintendo eShop did somehow manage to recently got the actual color change for the actual catalog section to red. Like, I almost first thought that was going to be orange, but apparently it's going to be red, because obviously with that, you know, Happy Mario 10 Day ever since in 9 days ago, but hey, at least that's pretty cool to able to see that red colored variation of that particular catalog section here and there, ever since the Journey forms have been, would say not only in the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Bros., but also with the forms of, the past years, regardless of the forms of the Mario 10 Day or something. I have no idea what I was supposed to able to figure this out for the sake of time, so anyways, let's go ahead and deal with the forms of the Defect Robot again, except now we're going to be playing as Tails, and also what makes this a little bit more cooler is that we now actually have rings. So either way though, this makes things a heck of a lot more easier than the forms of how it does it whenever you first got there, on not only on classic mode, but also the anniversary modes as well. So meaning about the fact that I don't have to worry about just trying to able to retry that particular boss fight again. So relatively speaking though, I appreciate able to include rings in this fight, even though it does kind of reminds me of something related to this uninspired Defect Robot boss fight since during the likes of in Sonic 4 Episode 1, just because obviously that particular game has far more lack of originality department when it comes to Episode 1. That one doesn't take that long too. So either way though, it only took me about, I would say 5 minutes or something like this. Well, it depends really on the forms of the actual play time and stuff, but at least we can now move on to the final game in terms of boss rush mode, and that is of course Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, and yeah. Okay, if you couldn't tell already, this is going to be the post-commentary for this particular segment, not only because about the fact that I do apologize for that particular background noise you'll be hearing from my commentary, because, oh man, there's a lot of construction going on for the sake of the roadworks and stuff like that, which I do apologize for that, folks. But hopefully by that time until whenever when, you know, both Mighty and Ray are both coming back onto Super Mario All-Stars in Tuesdays and Thursdays, essentially, then obviously we don't need to worry about too much noise in the background. So, either way. So, yeah, you probably get the idea of how this is going, and what we're gonna do when it comes to this particular process of this entire boss rush is that I'm actually gonna be going through 3 run-throughs. Well, not so much on the Tails' perspective, because obviously I'm going to be only showing you guys, well, not only for the majority of the boss fights as Sonic, but only one boss fight for Tails, and also with another majority of boss fights whenever we get to Knuckles' run-through of this boss rush mode. So either way, despite the fact that I accidentally got hit by that particular Egg Driller Mark II or anything else like that, so either way though, I somehow must admit that I didn't pay attention to that at all. So yeah, obviously, since that we cannot able to actually have supersonic transformation to ourselves at this point, so naturally speaking, we now need to do it in the hardest method if possible. Well, thankfully in Sonic's run-through is actually not too bad, so it's just about the fact that you need to able to jump at the right time in order to able to deal the amount of damage to this particular contraption for Eggman, which is of course Egg Drillster Mark II. But then if we able to realize that, as you can tell, I've managed to able to realize that I've got myself the auto-saving system every time whenever you move on to the next fight as Sonic. So relatively speaking, now we're going to be able to hit on to Tails' version of Egg Drillster Mark II boss fight. And concerning this boss fight variation, is actually a lot harder compared to the forms of how it does it in Sonic's playthrough. So because of this though, because in order to able to deal the amount of damage to Egg Drillster Mark II, is that you need to able to get an exact right moment if you're trying to able to deal the amount of damage to him with his tails. So either way though, definitely a lot harder than the forms of how it does it on Sonic's playthrough for sure. But regardless of such though, if you get quite enough hits on him though, you should be alright. But it's just about the fact that this particular boss fight is actually pretty difficult with Tails, so... And kind of think about it, it's pretty much in exactly the same formation as new forms of how it does it on Sonic's playthrough, which is pretty crazy all things considered. Now, if you're probably wondering, what's up with my only one life left, you're probably wondering? Well, for whatever reason, I seem to be able to have a lot of struggles with this boss fight, which is of course Egg Gravitation, which as a result, because I couldn't seem to able to figure out how to able to supposed to attack him, but luckily you do have an instant shield attack, so basically you can able to actually deal quite a good amount of damage to him, but you have to be very careful of his hitbox when it comes to, like, not only for this particular green ball that he's constantly dropping, but also with this electricity thing, which if you manage to get in contact with the actual electricity, it'll try to suck you up. So either way though, at least we already know what this boss fight actually plays out to be, so you have to wait until when he dips down, and then obviously you have to use the instant shield at the right moment. So either way though, it's very tricky though, I must admit, just because, well, yeah, oh yeah, it's called Egg Gravitron, I think that's what it says anyway. The only boss fights you might not come across into is the mini boss fights, specifically Act 1 boss fights, because the only bosses you only encounter is with Dr. Eggman, isn't it? So because of that though, I can totally see why they refuse to able to actually put in Act 1 bosses, which I kind of wish they'll add it to make things a little bit more interesting, but apparently though it doesn't, so... Oh well, at least beggars else can be choosers, I guess. So I suppose the next thing I want to mention though is that apparently though we actually got ourselves a new trailer for the sake of the forms of Dokapon Kingdom Connect, and basically though it's about the fact that, well, you probably get the idea of how that particular game is going to be represented with. And by the way, I just really love that particular skipping the actual transition when it comes to likely if you bump into Knuckles and or anything else like that. So yeah, I do appreciate about that particular scene has been skipped over in the boss rush, so, because obviously we're in a rush. So anywho, so yeah, with the forms that new trailer just came up when it comes to Dokapon Kingdom Connect for the Nintendo Switch, that basically though is about the fact that not only do we get ourselves the actual the English version of the trailer, but also the final release date for the game in North America and the European versions as well. Now I don't know if they might as well able to do the physical version, I don't think. Well, mind you, I have seen a couple of those European copies of the game. But relatively speaking though, here's what I can able to think about it. Despite the fact that I'm probably not going to get the game for myself, just because, well, honestly, I'm really not a big fan of the gameplay style as much. Just because I'm still more into, like, you know, Mario Party and stuff like that. And even nowadays, Boom Street and stuff like that. Well, despite the fact that it's been ages since I actually last played Boom Street after realizing of too much luck-based elements can be sometimes. But either way though, that might be saying something. Out of all the actual boss fights, or the actual boss rush modes we're able to come across into, Sonic 3 and Knuckles boss rushes are definitely a lot more longer than he forms of how it does it in both Sonic 1, 2, and CD, just to ensure about the fact that it does have a lot of bosses. Well, I do know for one thing in mind, that if you ever play as Sonic or Tails in this boss rush, at least as far as I'm usually extended with, that basically you do fight 11 boss fights, which is insane. Although, if you manage to play as Knuckles, I can assure to you, you only need to deal with 9 boss fights. So, yeah, I can totally see how that's going to be represented with that stuff. So, yeah, anyway, in terms of the release date for, you know, Dokapon Kingdom Connect, it's going to be releasing in 9th of March. In regards to the forms of, oh wow, I somehow managed to catch the ring, despite the fact that I'm almost going to be dying for that particular point right there. That's actually pretty insane. So, yeah, as far as I'm aware, the Japanese version is still going to be releasing until the 13th of April in this year. And then now in the North America and the European countries, they've managed to got the release date for it, and it's going to be releasing, as I said before, until May the 9th. So, as a result, 3 days before Tears of the Kingdom is going to be releasing. So, but personally though, I think I should probably be able to be looking forward to Zelda Tears of the Kingdom a lot more than the forms of how it does it on Dokapon Kingdom Connect to me though, just because again, I'm not exactly a huge fan of the gameplay style for that game, at least to me anyway, so... Now let's move on to certain boss fights based off from Sonic and Knuckles, and something tells me there's no rings in this boss fight. Yes, some bosses do give you some rings, and then some of them aren't, so you have to be super perfection when it comes to your forms of trying to deal with certain boss fights, as you can probably tell. So either way though, thankfully we did manage to take down Egg Scrambler right here, based off from Mushroom Hill Zone. And of course, since we're now on to the next boss fight right here, which obviously takes place in Flying Battery Zone, and I'm almost gonna get crushed for that particular little slopey thingy right there, but regardless of such though, I do need to get some bit of speed, and so whenever I get some progression there. So, yeah, I guess that's about it basically. So either way though, now I suppose the last thing I could possibly mention about, in regards to the forms of this particular segment of post-commentary, is that, basically, speaking of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, unfortunately this particular game, or that particular game rather, is not going to be playable at PAX East 2023. And because of that though, just to make sure they're able to avoid any spoiler content for the sake of that particular game, which is probably understandable, especially concerning about the fact that it's almost completed, in regards to the forms of what the game has been made or anything else like that. So either way though, that's all I can really say about this honestly, so... Alright, so there goes Egg Hanger. So now let's move on to Egg Golem, based off from Sandopolis Zone. Thankfully, we still have rings to collect, just to ensure if we keep on getting hit a lot. Because honestly, if we do manage to able to realize that if it doesn't have that much rings, if it's possible that, well, it's a bit tricky to explain, because I know for a fact that we haven't fought any boss fights like this for quite some time since in story mode. So either way though, yeah, that's all he does when it comes to likely for that glowing part, but at least we can able to deal with him no problem. So Egg Inferno, that's the name of that particular boss fight. That makes things a bit, you know, lengthier as far as the actual battle goes, but either way though. And also, one thing I should probably realize is that the reason why I have to do multiple jump cuts when it comes to certain attempts for anything else for that specifically, because either way though, that's the only reason why that this particular part took so long to able to actually finally get the thing published onto the actual community and all that stuff. But either way though, that might be, you know, seems to be the case, so... And relatively speaking though, that's, yeah, I guess that's about it basically, in regards to the forms of today's discussion. But then again, I'll let both Ray and Mighty will both mention more about the next tour coming up on next Wednesday for the likes of Mario Kart Tour, and join at some point in next Tuesday as far as, you know, discussing on Mario-related things and all that stuff. I would have liked able to actually just talk about something else entirely though, but honestly, I think that's as far as I can try to just describe about any of those kind of things and stuff like this. Oh, wait a second, I actually realized that I probably should able to mention about the forms of the Oscar-winning nominations, during the forms within 2023 so far. Although I'll explain more details about that once we're able to get on to the forms of the next couple of boss fights up ahead. Although, fundamentally speaking though, it's about the fact that I'm pretty sure there's also another boss fight I don't think we can probably come across into in this boss rush mode. That's what appears to be by the forms. You know, with this particular annoying boss fight in Death Egg Zone Act 2? Well, I can assure you that particular boss fight is not going to be included in this boss rush, because something tells me that we're now on to the final one, which appears to be Giant Eggman Robo. So yeah, that is definitely the last fight in this boss rush. So, quite surprising to able to know that they skipped over the, one of those boss fights in, Act 2 of Death Egg Zone. So, yeah, it seems interesting, So yeah, in terms of the forms of certain winners and nominations, as far as I'm aware, they can be divided into, like, few different categories, as far as I'm aware. Like, the Best Picture award goes to Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. So, either way, though, as far as any other films are concerned, they obviously got nominated, like Top Gun, Maverick, Woman Talking, The Banshees of Inisherin, I think is what it says anyway. I apologize for that mispronunciation of that particular film's title. And there's also Triangle of Sadness and The Fabelmans, All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar, The Way of Water, Elvis, and Tar, I think is what it says anyway. And the Best Actor award goes to the films of Brendan Fraser, alongside with the forms of other nominations as well, within Bill Mighty and the other actors I could probably be able to try to pronounce and stuff like that, but honestly I think I actually lost count on it. But the ones I'm really into though is that with all these other nomination awards from the likes of the forms of Best International Feature Film, like, I do know for one thing, the actual true winner for that particular catalog, which appears to be by the forms of All Quiet on the Western Front, so along with any other quite a few nominations here and there as well, like, for instance, The Quiet Girl, Close, E.O., and, I can't really pronounce that film very well, I do apologize for that, folks, especially concerning about the fact that, well, you know what I'm saying. So now we've actually done with Sonic right here, even though despite the fact that we have only done, you know, one boss fight with Tails just because of all that difficulty curve. So now let's move on to the Knuckles' boss fight, which, as a result, they are a lot more harder than the forms of how it does it on Sonic's playthrough, especially because he actually has more attacks, and especially noticeable whenever we get to Marble Golden Zone, that basically though the entire arena takes place is actually a lot different, despite the fact that you have to come across into exactly the same boss fight, except obviously it's now going to be able to be realized that the Egg Robo is now controlling the forms of certain contraptions. So yeah, because for instance in Hydro City Zone, as you can see, that basically though is that he doesn't seem able to dip down while he's trying to able to be activating the actual whirlpool of such. So even then though, yeah, I consider this to be, you know, the hard mode of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but either way though, I also was expecting to able to actually go for the entire game as Knuckles, but honestly, that aside from the fact that it just gives you alternative, you know, paths to take and all that stuff, I think that's as far as I can try to describe about any of this. And, yeah, like I mentioned this before, that's the best animated feature for 2023 for its Oscar nominations, or in terms of the winners department, the winner for that catalog will have to be Buddy Films' The Pinocchio movie, which came out in 2022 on Netflix. So yeah, I can totally see why that's been been the winner for the best animated feature. Whilst in terms of nominations though, well, obviously we've got Turning Red and Marshall the Shell with Shoes On and the Sea Beast and even Puss in Boots The Last Wish. So I really wish that film will get itself its actual reward from the best animated feature, but we are very, very close for that part. So anyway, so let's move on to Marble Garden Zone boss with Knuckles, and obviously this particular boss plays out a little bit more differently compared to Sonic and Tails, because rather than taking place in the sky, so instead it takes place in the inside portion of the actual, let's say in the ruins or something, so... And on top of all that stuff, though, is about the fact that, relatively speaking, that, you know, there's no boss fight in Carnival Night Zone with Knuckles because, obviously, that, you know, Sonic and Tails are the only ones able to stumble across a actual boss fight in a Carnival Night Zone, alongside with Lava Reef Zone as well. So, relatively speaking, though, I think, you know, you get the idea about that. So... I think this boss fight is actually a bit trickier with Knuckles, just because if you accidentally get frozen by, you know, with these little cold, steamy stuff, basically you die instantly, and it's bad enough that we actually have none of those rings at all, so yeah, we got screwed, so, whoops. Oh well, it doesn't matter though, because either way though, we can just simply keep trying, assuming of course, if I die again, then I have to do that particular strategy thing like I mentioned this before. So either way though, let's just go ahead and deal with the last few hits on him if possible. And oh jeez, that was close. And there goes my life. Oh, what a shame. But hey, at least we're able to do not retry, because obviously we'll go all the way back to the start. So instead, we have to do this, because otherwise, again, if you accidentally press retry on the yes button, then you have to start all over again with this particular boss rush. So, but regardless of such though, I still have myself 1 life left, so I might be alright with this, because I can't even believe I somehow died on the, this particular boss fight for about twice as Knuckles. Well, I do get it because this boss fight is a bit tricky, so you have to wait until it goes on to another side of things. So, now let's move on to Egg Rocket and Big Arms, because obviously we've not encountering, you know, Egg Cannon for Knuckles. So, either way though, we can just essentially try to take him down by dealing with him in a different arena, as opposed to the exactly same arena spot as what Sonic and Tails already come across him to. So either way, spin dash for the win, just to ensure he'll deals the good amount of damage. So, well, if possible anyway. So yeah, let's just go ahead and, I was expecting if I was trying to jump on him though, but apparently I wasn't looking right. There we go. So obviously it's not over yet, because now we need to do with Big Arms, as in the Egg Robo, so... But yeah, that's as far as I can say about for this point today, guys. I mean, sure enough though, I've basically just all gotten covered for the sake of the forms of trying to able to discuss upon, you know, multiple things and all that stuff though, but that's basically all there is to it for this point, so anyway. So... But yeah, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. In terms of the forms of everything else I could probably discuss at this point, what is your favorite 2D Sonic games you've ever played? Because I would like to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Because concerning about the fact that, like I mentioned this before, Sonic 3 and Knuckles is obviously one of my favorite games of all time, and I'm sure most people already agree to this, especially because concerning that, you know, that game is a masterpiece, and because of that, very appreciate able to bring that particular games back on the modern consoles. Well, usually relatively speaking though, when it comes to like Sonic 3 and Knuckles combined. So either way though, I'm very happy about this, although despite with the forms of the licensing music issues, so... But then again, we'll have to wait and see what happens in due time, if it's sure enough the Plus edition of Sonic Origins will be existent at that one point, so... So now let's move on to the Sonic and Knuckles levels for Knuckles, and because of that though, yeah, this is where the game starts to get pretty difficult with Boss Rush, because now, we now need to able to not only try to avoid those obscure, wait a second, are these gonna be like, almost was thought it could have brings us into the harder variation of that particular... Oh, there it is. 2 spike balls on that particular side. But either way, we did somehow manage to did this okay enough, despite the fact that the only trickiest part about that particular fight for me, though, is that, well, sometimes it's all about the forms of timing and accuracy when it comes to likely trying to avoid not only certain spiky balls, but also with the actual rocket fuse, for the sake of the forms of that particular boss fight alone, so... Man, I just really love the Flying Battery Zone music, especially because, as I said before, that, you know, Sonic 3 and Knuckles obviously has the best soundtrack ever. Well, aside from the forms of the Sonic Origins version, because like I said before, with licensing issues for certain songs. So, now we come across into Egg Hanger again, except now it makes things a bit harder, because now he actually uses the actual flamethrower to able to give us this advantage. So, but honestly, it's actually pretty easy when you get the pattern down. So either way though, yeah, that's as far as I can think about it. Despite I did fail my gliding right there, but either way, who knows, but hey. Hopefully it'll come out. And... oh, just one more hit will do, I think. And... oh, just one more. There we go. There goes Egg Hanger. Now let's move on to Egg Golem. So, I'm very curious to know. Thankfully, we've got some rings. So, at least we don't have to worry about doing this with Deathless Run. So, alright, so we'll just have to attack him very quickly. If it doesn't seem to... well, you know, you get the idea about that. So... oh god, that was close. And he's actually moving a lot faster too, so... oop, okay, there we go. Now let's move on to the final boss in the Knuckles' story in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which appears to be not only Mecha Sonic, as you can tell from that particular description, but also Super Mecha Sonic. So, and this obviously takes place in Sky Century Zone, if you couldn't tell, from that particular environment itself. So obviously, this particular boss fight is definitely a bit trickier with Knuckles, just because of all the limitations of his movesets or anything else like that. But at least we've already fight against with Mecha Sonic as Sonic in the actual Sky Century Zone within 3 times. So it seems pretty weird about the fact that, you know, Sonic never actually stumbled across into himself Super Mecha Sonic for himself, or Tails, essentially. Well, I don't know if you were able to actually access to the level select system for Sonic anyway, but it might not likely though. But either way, if you think this is done, turns out we've only got one more phase to the fight, which is of course, he's going to be absorbing the Master Emerald's power to become Super Mecha Sonic. So, yeah, it does kind of remind me of something related to that. You know what I mean, the Super Mario Bros. Z, you know, Newsground animation back in the 2000s. So, yeah, you know what I'm saying, I do miss that particular old days when it comes to watching those, you know, sprite animations for, you know, Super Mario Bros. Z, but at least we're getting a rebooted version of that particular thing itself. So, it's not the end of the world, personally. Oh, and also another thing too, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. Do you even remember watching Super Mario Bros. Z as the new forms of the Newsground sprite animation, you know, movies and stuff like that, despite there's only 8 episodes back in the day, because it's a shame that the 9th episode never happened, and because of that, it no longer existence. So, because obviously there's so many, like, April Fool's joke back in the day, 24/7, like, you know what I mean. So either way though, that's all I can say about this. So obviously you need to wait until when Mecha Sonic cools down after that particular super transformation he pulls off. And then you don't want to be able to attack him while he's on the actual Master Emerald itself, because if you dare touch him while he's absorbing the power from the Master Emerald, basically though you're gonna get hit. So, oh gosh, we have to avoid those little fake rings or anything else like that. Which, kind of thinking about it, it does kind of reminds me of one of those. I don't know about the Sonic shorts when it comes to likely for eating onion rings or something. But either way, we deal with Mecha Sonic. So either way, that pretty much takes care of the Forms of the Boss Rush mode with all 4 games combined. So, definitely nowhere near as long as the Forms of Power does it on the mission mode, but it's just about the fact the matter is that this entire process took a way long time to able to get into that particular stuff. But either way though, that's as far as I can say about it. So either way, I suppose, relatively speaking, that it seems that we've almost nearly at the end. In terms of Sonic Origins, because relatively speaking, we've got a couple of modes to show off and all that stuff. So as a result, we got the endings up here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic Origins. Is that we're going to be showing off some extras of this game has to offer, including Mirror Mode, Blue Spheres, and especially noticeable with Alpha Missile Mania's extras as well. And I will see you guys until not this next weekend, but specifically upcoming few days. So I'll see you guys then.